share a story around the winter solstice. And I know a lot of stuff has gone back and forth. And I think I was going to tell the story of the dear mother, but we've heard that story and we've seen it being talked about quite a lot. There's another beautiful story that I've told, which comes from North America, from the Cherokee indigenous people. And I thought, nah, that's a story for another time. And then I saw Yulia join the meeting, and I realized what story I wanted to tell, but unfortunately she's left. But unfortunately, as a storyteller has a repertoire, and a storyteller doesn't really know what stories to tell until they meet the audience. And when the story saw Yulia, decided it wanted to be told. And this is a story called The 12 Months. And it's actually an Eastern European, a Slovak story. And the protagonist in the story is a young girl by the name of Maruschka. Now, like many stories or many fairy tales, it was very sad, but Maruschka's mother passed away soon after she gave birth to Maruschka. And Maruschka's dad remarried. Now, the stepmother, Maruschka's new mother, ended up being a really horrible, nasty woman, really mean and vile. She treated Maruschka terribly. And when Maruschka's stepmother gave birth to her own child, so it was Maruschka's stepsister, well, this was the child that all the attention was given to. And this young girl's name was Helen. And one particular cold winter's day, it was Helen's 16th birthday. And the stepmother, or Helen's mother, said to Helen, "What would you like for your birthday?" And she said, "I want violets. I want fresh violets for my birthday." To which the mother looked at Maruschka and said, "Maruschka, go and get your sister violets now." And Maruschka looked at her stepmother and looked at her father, but I don't actually know. Her father never really played a big part in the story. I don't know why that is the case. I don't know what happens to these men. They just seem to sit in the shadows, right? Nevertheless, her father didn't say anything. And the stepmother said, "Maruschka, if you don't go and get the violets, you are going to sleep outside tonight." Maruschka looked outside. The snow was falling. The wind was blowing. It was cold. She was not going outside. Well, she didn't want to sleep outside. So she said, okay. She grabbed her coat. She wrapped herself up and off she went. And she went walking off into the forest. It was freezing. And she walked for quite a while until she came to a little clearing in the forest. She didn't really recognize it. And there, sitting around the fire, were 12 people, all different ages and sizes. And she walked up and she said, "Would it be all right if I just warmed my hands by your fire? I'm so cold." "Come, my child, come," said this very old man with a long beard. And he said, "What are you doing out here in the woods?" She said, "Well, my stepsister, it's her birthday, and she's demanded violets for her birthday. And where am I going to find violets?" "Oh, I can help you," the old man said, "for I am January." And he looked across the fire and he said, "March, come here." And this young child stepped up. The child of March walked across, and she took Maruschka by the hand and walked off. They walked off into the mist between the trees. And as Maruschka walked, it got brighter and sunnier. And the next thing, she heard birdsong. And all the snow had gone, and there was green, fresh shoots all across the ground. And there under a tree were violets. And she went and she picked the violets. She turned around and she walked. She walked back and she found herself home in no time at all. And she walked inside and she gave the violets to her sister. Now you can imagine her sister was quite surprised. Where did you get those?" she said. "Well, I got them from..." "You're not going to believe this," said Maruschka. And she told the story of meeting the 12 people around the fire. Now, it's Eastern European tradition. You don't just celebrate your birthday on one day. You celebrate your birthday literally the entire week. I mean, maybe even the month. So the next day, the stepmother said to Helen, Helen, what else would you like for your birthday? I want strawberries, she said. I really want strawberries, fresh, juicy strawberries. Maruschka, shouted the stepmother, go and fetch your sister some strawberries. Where am I going to find strawberries, she said. It's still snowing outside. If you don't go get strawberries, you're going to be sleeping outside. God. Okay. She got her coat and off she went, trudging through the snow, and went off into the forest. And again she came across the 12 characters sitting, the 12 people sitting around the fire. She said, oh, can I warm my hands again, please? It's so cold. And the old man, that was January, said, Maruschka, why are you out in the snow again? She said, oh, my sister wants strawberries now. Where am I going to get strawberries? I can help, said January. June, come here. And June stepped up, and this beautiful young lady walked across, took Maruschka by the hand, and walked off into the mist between the trees. And Maruschka walked for a while, and soon she could feel the warmth of the sun. And the grass was green, there was no snow. The birds were singing, and the sun was warm and hot. And then she saw the strawberries all across the green grass. And she picked up the strawberries, and oh, she had a taste of a few of them. Oh, yes, she did. You always do that, don't you, when you go and pick berries and fruit and whatnot? You always got to have a taste of some of them. And then she picked up a whole lot. She filled her pockets and put a whole lot in her apron. And she walked home. And she arrived home in no time at all. The snow was now falling heavily. She walked inside and she dropped all the strawberries onto the kitchen table. There you go, Helen. Happy birthday. Now, Helen, of course, was once again very surprised, but wow, did she get stuck into those strawberries. Next day, the stepmother said to Helen, Helen, what would you like on your third day of your birthday? Apples, Mum. I want apples. I want apples. Maruschka, go and fetch your sister some apples. Apples? Where am I going to get apples? Well, go and get them. If you don't go and get the apples, you're going to be sleeping outside. So off Maruschka went again. She met the 12 months of the year sitting around the fire. She asked to warm her hands. And old January said, why are you here again, Maruschka? She said, I'm here to get apples. Where am I going to get apples? Ah, do not worry, said January. September, come over here, please. And this tall man stood up, quite handsome indeed. And he walked across and he took Maruschka off, and they walked off into the mist between the trees. And soon Maruschka could still feel that lovely, warm, summery glow, but could see the colors of the leaves changing. And she came up to a tree, and in that tree were beautiful, bright red apples. Some had already fallen on the ground, but she picked as many as she could, and she filled up her apron, and she carried them home. The snow was falling, and she walked inside. She dropped all the apples on the table. And Helen said, how is this possible? You got the violets and the strawberries and the apples, all from these same people in the forest. Yes, said Maruschka. I am going to go tomorrow. I am going to go and get more violets, more strawberries, and more apples for me, and I'm going to get them all. Now, of course, Maruschka was surprised because most of the stuff was already for her. But nevertheless, she thought nothing of it. And the next day, Helen woke up and off she went. She was going to go and get more violets, strawberries, and apples, again, all for herself. And she walked into the forest and she came across the 12 months of the year, and she knew them. And they said, hello, who are you? And she said, I just want violets, and I want strawberries, and I want apples, and I want them now. Said December, I will help you. If you see over there, if you look over there, in between the trees, some mist. If you walk into the mist, you will find what you're looking for. And she didn't say thank you. She didn't say anything. She just turned off and walked into the mist. Now the day went by, and the stepmother was starting to get a little bit anxious. But then she thought about her daughter and thought, why am I worried? That greedy child is probably sitting out there, eating all the strawberries and apples, smelling her violets, and not caring about her mother. I am going to go and fetch her. So off she went into the cold, into the snow, and she came across the 12 months of the year, sitting around the fire. And she said, "Where is my daughter? Where is my daughter?" And January said, "Ah, madam, you see that mist between the trees? If you walk into that mist, you will find what you're looking for." She turned around, off she went into the mist. And my friends, to this day, the stepmother and Helen, her daughter, are still wandering around the forest looking for the violets and strawberries and apples. And the mother is cursing and cursing Helen. Now, as for Maruschka, well, her and her father, of course, lived happily ever after. And that story is called The 12 Months. Thank you.